So I want to talk about a concept in the big book that I'm very connected to. It's the concept of delusion. The idea that we could do something that we know is bad for us, but we'll continue to do it over and over again with the mindset of, well, this time I've got it, I can handle it, it's going to be a different result, knowing though that it won't be. And then when the bad thing happens, you'll start questioning yourself, well, what's wrong with me? Why did I do that? And that's the part that makes things like this so confusing. The fact is, you're not stupid. You know the consequences. You know what's going to happen. So what is this? Is it just bad decision making? Is it a lack of discipline, weakness, or is it something else going on? And I want to talk about that today. That's something else. That's the delusion. Once you see it, it's the thing you can't unsee. It's this idea that we don't just make bad choices. We actually believe something that isn't true right before we make them. So I can give you a few common examples. You can text somebody you well know is bad for you, hoping that you're going to get a different response from them. And when you get that bad response, well, you'll say, well, I'll never text them again, but you end up doing it again. Or maybe it's not a person, maybe it's a habit. I'm just going to scroll through TikTok for maybe a few minutes to make myself feel better. And then afterwards, you realize you've wasted 2 hours, or you start sending a few snaps and you're not getting any likes on them. So you continue sending more and more until you wasted all this time. And so then you'll ask yourself, well, how did I do this again? And it's not that you're lying to yourself. You actually believe that these times will be different. And that's what's so powerful. There's a line in the big book, lots of lines that talk about delusion, that we're not like other people. The misconception that we are like other people. As alcoholics and addicts, we aren't like other people. We're allergic to alcohol. We have the mental obsession, the delusion that we can drink or do drugs, even legal prescription drugs, like other people. Think of it this way. I am incredibly lactose intolerant. I cannot eat ice cream. I can't eat dairy, but I will test the waters. I'll eat ice cream because I love it, well knowing it's going to be a terrible result. Pain, suffering, anguish, an afternoon in the bathroom, but I'll still test the waters. So a lot of these examples, somewhere in our mind, somewhere in my mind, somewhere in your mind, there's a belief that, okay, this time I'll be able to manage it. I can control it. I can do it differently. The result will be different, even though every piece of evidence we know says otherwise. Now, that is not logic. That is not reason. That is something else. Think about it like this. If you touched a hot stove and it burnt you badly, you wouldn't sit there later and go, you know what, I think I'm going to touch that hot stove again. You wouldn't debate it. You wouldn't rationalize it. You wouldn't romanticize it. You just wouldn't touch it again. So why do we do that with other behaviors? Why do we override our own experience? And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because it's not like we forgot what happened. It's that we choose to remember it differently. We soften it. We edit it. We highlight the part that felt good and blur out the parts that hurt. And when the thought comes back, it doesn't come back as, here's that thing that wrecked you. It comes back as, well, maybe this time I can do it differently. And once that thought takes hold, you're already in trouble, because now you're not deciding based on reality. You're deciding based on a story, a delusion, your own fan fiction you're writing. And it's a very convincing story. This is why people repeat patterns that don't make any sense. It's not because they don't care. It's not because they don't know any better. It's because in that moment, they believe something different than they believed the last time they got hurt. That's the trap. That's like the story of Fred in the big book. The guy who was feeling great on a business trip, he was on top of the world, and because he was convinced he could manage his obsession, he tests the waters. He takes one drink, and he goes on to destroy everything. That's the delusion. That's why your favorite band, movie star, or sports figure who is in recovery can relapse so easily. If you've ever sat there after the fact of something like this, after the argument, the relapse, the binge, the whatever it is, and thought, I swear I meant it when I said I wouldn't do that again, you probably did. That wasn't fake. That was probably real. But so was the belief that you had it right before you did it again. So now you've got two conflicting truths. One version of you that says, well, never again, and another version that says, this time things will be different. And depending on which one is louder in the moment, that's the one that wins. So what do? First, you stop calling it a discipline problem, because that keeps you stuck. And if you think this is about willpower, you will just keep trying harder and repeating the same insanity. We're talking about delusion. Second, you start getting honest about the pattern. Not the outcome, the pattern. The moment right before that shift in thinking, that subtle voice inside your head that says, go ahead, it'll be fine. Because that voice, that's the thing that needs to be questioned. That's what we talk about when we say spiritual awakening. You don't need a reset or a reboot. You need an entirely new operating system installed. That's what recovery is. That's a new higher power for you, or a new relationship with your God of your understanding. So if there's one thing to take from this, it's this. The problem isn't that you don't know better. It's that in certain moments you believe something that isn't true. You're deluding yourself. And once you start noticing that, everything starts to make a lot more sense.